Hello, everyone, all you wonderful people. Thank you so much for joining back, and hope you're having a good day ahead. Today, we'll be doing a magnolia flower, which seems a little tough, but actually, it's not so once you get the hang of it. So, we will be doing a very quick. I'll try to make it quick, actually, this video, but we'll do the magnolia sketch first, and then we'll get into the painting. And you wouldn't believe it, but I have never ever seen a magnolia in person. It's only from the pictures that I've seen them. So whatever I'm drawing are possibly some pictures that I would have seen somewhere on the internet. So I'm just putting them together. And magnolias, if you see them, they're very beautiful, especially because their petals are barely curved and they have this amazing trough shape that comes through. It's like a cup, that you can see because they fold in such a beautiful manner, just like what I've drawn here. So they will have a little bit of a depression. Of course, there are going to be flat petals as well. So we will try and make a sketch where we incorporate both the flat petals and the curved ones, and also the ones with the trough or the cup shapes. So let's get on with this. This is going to be a fairly quick sketch that I'll be doing. I'm just going to think as I draw, where else can I add a shape which is curved so that we can do some shadow work as well. And of course, we'll keep adding the flat petals as we go along. So as you can see, the shape is coming through, I would say, but maybe one more petal on the left side, and that should actually do the trick. Yes, I think this is a decent sketch of a magnolia, as you would see it. So what we'll do now is we are going to get into the painting part of it, and for that you can see my watercolor set here. This is not any particular brand, it's just a regular set that I use for experimentation and for exercises like this. To begin the painting, we will start by wetting the paper in the shape of the petals that we've drawn. This is because we want to incorporate the same technique that I taught in my last video. It's called charging. It's a wet on wet technique. And this is where you first wet the paper wherever you're planning to put paint on. And then we start introducing paint in little bouts. So we start off with a little bit of paint, make sure that it's flowing through the paper and through that sketch that you've done. And then we are going to go ahead and start making it even more deeper. We're going to add more colors if you want to. In this particular case, what I want to do is stick to very basic colors. Because the paper is white, I thought using rose pink would be a great idea so that it's visible as well. And usually I don't think magnolias are so bright, but we will be making it a little brighter than usual. So you can see that I've loaded my brush and I'm using that rose pink I was telling you about. So it's there on the right hand side. You can see where my brush is going to go. That's the color that I'm going to be using. And I've already dampened my brush, loaded it with some paint, and we'll start off by charging the sketch now. So just observe how I am introducing the color. I'm starting with the innermost part of the flower where every petal is going to be converging and meeting. And then I'm slowly going to start moving towards the edges and also introducing the color towards the midsection of the petals. Of course, we have to be careful where we are introducing the colors, because some of these are going to be fairly dark, which are going to be representative of the shadows that are going to get created, while some of them are going to be very pale, a blush pink, if I can say, or possibly white, which are going to be the areas which are highlighted by the light that is falling on them. So if you see this area, this is actually between leaves, and it's bound to be a little darker because there is going to be a little bit of a shadow coming through. This particular leaf that I'm doing right now, this is the bottommost leaf, so there is going to be shadow underneath. So that's where I've introduced the color there, and as we progress, we will keep continuing to build up on this. So just going to start moving the color a little inward, and I'm diluting the paint. As you can see, it's going to be very faint, this pink color that we'll create. And we'll make sure that it doesn't bleed too much. So that is a trick actually. I'm doing this very quickly here, but I would suggest, if you have the time, you wait for each segment to dry off before you start painting the adjacent segments. Otherwise, bleeding is bound to occur. You might end up getting a really good result, but then again, it may also look a little spread out and not as crisp as one would want it to be. So I want it to be a little more crisper, so I am trying to get that effect while it's still wet, but let's see what the final result comes out to be like. Now I'm adding the color here. I'm spreading it a crayon towards the last petal, and the next step here that I'm going to be doing is going to be adding more concentrated color, the rose color that I'm using right now. And again, we start charging the paper. It's still wet, remember, because you're using so much water for diluting and spreading the paint. So it is wet, and it's not sopping wet, of course, but good enough for charging. So let's complete this part quickly, and then we'll move to the next part of it. So here I am using more concentrated rose, and you can see how it's going to start spreading across each of these petals. And again, reminding that for me, the shadows are going to be dark or deep rose color. It's not going to be black or gray. I don't want to use those shades here, but of course you can create magnificent looking flowers and magnolias if you do start using a couple of other tints here. You'll have to be very careful how you use them. In fact, I've done a couple of magnolias on my Instagram, so in case you have time, please do check that out. You understand what I'm talking about, because that one also is pink, again, by the way, but there are shades of very faint gray and also a little bit of brown in different areas. In any case, let's continue with this one. So here again, I'm darkening the sides, which I am thinking of as being in the shadow areas. So I'm going to add more color to each of these areas and make it deeper, so that it looks like the light is actually falling from the top left hand side of the flower, and that's where you see the whites, and the right bottom side is the side where you have a lot of shade coming through. And I'm loving actually how the flower is actually coming out. It's picked up some shape. It's looking good already. At least I feel it's looking really nice. But it'll get more and more crisp as we move forward. Keep defining the lines and adding more color as and when needed. Just going to spread out here, and you see you don't need a lot of color all the time. You can make do with the most minute amount of color as well, because right now I'm just trying to add the outlines, as I'm not taking a lot of color on my brush. I'm just kind of dipping it and also wiping it off a little bit more, so I don't have too much color on my brush at any point in time. I'm going to be leaving the middle petal for now, because that area is completely wet, and if I go in with my brush at this point, I know for sure that there's going to be a lot of bleeding happening, and I will end up with a distorted kind of a leaf with the colors completely spread out, and I don't want that at this point in time. So I'm just going to leave that small petal in the middle for now, and we'll come back to it later once we're through with the rest of the painting. Quickly finishing off on the flower itself. I really like the colors. I know it's a little bright for a magnolia, but again, for the sake of this video, I wanted to make sure everybody's able to see the shades that we're getting and the outlines of the flowers. So that's where this rather, I would say it's a little bold pink. It's not the most soft, but it looks nice, I would say. Just adding a little bit here so that we can spread out and give this petal a little bit of a color, which will also help for it to stand out from that little leaf that we haven't touched as of now. Maybe a little bit in this area, not adding color. I'm trying to lift off some of the color here because that is the white portion. And again, with watercolors, it's fairly easy to lift off the colors. Not all of them would allow it. Some of the staining colors are fairly adamant. So you have to know your colors a bit, which ones would lift off and which ones would not. Okay, so we are done. And now I think we are ready to go with the stems part of it. And for that, I'm going to be using my go-to, the sap green color that I have. And yeah, I'm just going to add a little bit more water. And we start off with the base of the flower. And if anyone's seen a magnolia, you would have probably noticed that the magnolia leaf actually is the stem, is fairly knotty. As in, it's got quite a few knots throughout the stem. It's not like say a rose stem, which is fairly straight, and of course it has bumps because of the thorns and all. But for magnolias, it's a little different. You have a little bit of a bump here and there coming throughout the stem. Of course, where the blooms are coming through or the leaves are coming through, it is going to be kind of standing out and protruding out. But without trying to make it very unnatural, I want to get some semblance of natural stem of a magnolia, and that's what I'm trying to achieve here. So while I've done the first outline as a thin one, I want to make it a little thicker because the stems are a little stronger of the magnolia. So I'm just going to make them a little thicker once I complete the base of the flower. And you can see how I'm actually moving. I'm just letting it be very fluid actually. There are some jagged ends here and there. I'm just trying to work around them, covering up the bumps, but not so much that it becomes absolutely smooth. I don't want that effect to come into this particular painting. I'm just thinking, actually, I want to use a little bit of a brown. Reason being that the stems are not going to be completely green always. There are going to be hints of yellows and browns alongside. So to make it look a little bit more real, I just added a little bit of a Van Dyke brown just on the underside. So again, that's the shadow area for the stem as well. So making it a little darker so that it looks more realistic. With that done, we can finally move on to the leaves. And on the leaves as well, I want to make sure that it's not flat. There has to be a little bit of a movement, and what I want to do is incorporate the same shadow and light effect for the leaves as well. So watch how I'm going to be drawing this leaf so that we have both of them coming into play, shadow and light. So this particular area is going to be the top side of the leaf where the light is actually falling, and this particular part is the bottom or the underside of the leaf, I'd say, towards the back of the leaf where it's connected to the stem. Same thing that I did with the Magnolias. I'm sticking to my sap green. I'm not using any other shade at all. I'm just using a more concentrated version of the sap green here to create the shadows. And for the light part, I'm just going to dilute the same sap green a little bit more. And you can see how well it's turned out. It's almost as if the leaf has curved and then fallen again in a shape where it catches the light. Well, moving on, I think we can add a couple of more leaves here, and probably one or two more is what I'm thinking. I don't want to make it too messy. So that's the second leaf that we'll do, and I'm trying to figure out how I want this one to look. Yeah, I think I'll just keep that top part as dark, and this is going to be the lighter part of it. And there's no right or wrong, honestly, because in nature you can find very weird things. So don't really feel that it has to be perfect all the time. But yes, of course, it cannot be completely unnatural as well. But this one is really good. I think it's perfectly fine. Maybe add another leaf here. We have space. That should look fine. And add some more concentrated sap green towards the lower part of the leaf and keep the upper part light. That looks good. Yep. And just making the light part, oops. So there's the blending I wanted to avoid, but no harm done. We still have the light effect coming through. So this looks great, honestly. And I'll probably want to do a little bit of a finishing work here on the petals. I've just switched to my 000 brush because I want to do very fine veins across each of the petals that we have. So that would help me achieve that effect. Going back to my rose, I've just loaded my brush with a more concentrated rose, but yes, there is a water, of course. It cannot be completely dry. And using a very light hand, I'm going to start drawing these veins for the petals, and I'm keeping in mind the shape of the petal as well. So the direction in which they're kind of folding or curving, I'm going to draw my veins in that particular direction itself. For example, this one is a fairly flat petal, so I'm not making any curved veins here. I'm just adding straighter lines and a little bit of a touch of color on the top edge of the petals. Similar to this one, this is also fairly flat as a petal, and I'm just going straight with my brush. I will add a couple of light strokes at the top. Looks good. And Again, this particular leaf is actually it's curved, so I'm trying to make the veins also a little curved to add to that effect. Mind you, there is another petal in front of it that we are yet to complete, so this is going to be behind it, so you have to remember that and not paint all over it. Similarly for this one, that's good. And coming to the center petal, we'll start by doing the outline first. Looks fairly good. And right, now we can do the petals for this one. And again, this is going to be a little flatter, so not making too much of curves when we go in for the veins for this particular petal. That looks all right, I suppose. And I feel I need to add a little bit of green to these leaves, make the shadow part a little more darker than it is. I'm just using more concentrated sap green again in this case, just dropping it in there. And I think this looks kind of done for me. I probably wouldn't want to mess it up any further, so there we are. And this come out great, I feel. Hopefully you liked it as well, and you hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm assuming that if you followed through, you'll find making magnolias a little easier in future. So thank you so much for joining. I hope you really enjoyed this. Have a great day ahead, and see you soon in my next video. Bye.